Hey everybody, welcome back to BobkeTV. Up next, the week-long wait is over. Sometimes more than a week for the broom wagon. Good, the bad, and the ugly from all the races. Music, musings, neutral zone news, and of course, a hilarious tweet of the week that you want to stay tuned for. All of that up on the broom wagon. Okay, everybody, we're transitioning now from the classic season, the early season, to the stage race season in the summer. And first up of the big stage races is the Tour of Romandie in Switzerland. To the good, Michael Matthews scores. First win of 2018 in the prologue time trial, a furious affair where he got the better of Rowan Dennis, Primoz Roglic, and Geraint Thomas, amongst others. So an impressive ride by Michael Matthews. And like I said, first win in 2018. Broke his shoulder. Omloop Nieuwsblad, his first race, but then was fifth at Flèche Wallonne. So good riding by Michael Matthews, and gets his first win of the year, and I'm sure many more to follow. Astana rolling big. So far this year, they've had a enviable start to 2018. A little fly in the ointment coming up a bit later in the musings. But for the time being, Omar Freile gets his second win of the year. And this year, Omar Freile, king of the mountain in the Vuelta twice, I believe, in his career, beat Sonny Colbrelli in a sprint. So a very impressive win by Omar Freile on stage number 2. And stage 3 goes to Thomas de Gent, Tom the Tank, steamrolling the field and using the maximum he could get out of descending on the top tube, which has been criticized by some in social media for its obvious danger, and some very high-profile detractors of sitting on the top tube to descend. I've tried it by myself now for a number of months and quite a few rides. When you're by yourself, it's hard to know if it's a big advantage. But I've used it for the first time in a group ride this weekend, and it's amazing how much quicker it is when you're in a group and when the guys around you are not sitting on the top tube. You're just like, whoom! I mean, you go up to warp speed so quickly. But the question of whether it's safe or not, like I said, I practiced this for many months by myself before I employed it in a group ride. And if you don't do that, it could be incredibly dangerous. But to be honest, I didn't think it was much more. I couldn't even tell if there was a difference between whether or not it was more dangerous. So Thomas de Gent holding off the sprint teams who were chasing most of the day, and a brilliant win. Also a little credit, tip of the hat to Nate Brown for being able to stick on Thomas's wheels. He's the last man standing from the breakaway. Did eventually get dropped and was reabsorbed by the field, but another brilliant from the breakaway win by Thomas de Gent. It's great to see him. And he had an interesting quote. He said, if I go in the season in, let's say, 60 breakaways, and 3 of them are successful, and I win the 3, that's good wins. That's high quality wins. And he's used that to win stages of all the Grand Tours at this point, I believe. Also to the good, a new star that I've mentioned before on the broom wagon, Egan Bernal from Colombia, just 21, and demolished the field in the stage number 3 time trial. It was uphill, so it's not 100% comparison between Egan and the very best time trialing specialists in the world, but he did beat some very quality opponents, including Roglic, Richie Porte, Rowan Dennis, and we'll get to Geraint Thomas's efforts on stage 3 in a moment in the bad section, but or maybe in the ugly. But like I said, just 21, a big superstar of the future, and plenty of good climbers out there, plenty of good time trialists. Very few can do both. He's one of them, and a huge future Grand Tour winner. If ever there was one in the Tour de France from Colombia, it's that man, Egan Bernal. Maybe Miguel Angel Lopez will beat him to the punch and win the Tour de France, but I'm going to predict now, Egan Bernal will win the Tour de France in his career. You heard it here first. Stage 4, Astana, still stomping Jakob Fuglsang. Also his first win of 2018. So congratulations to Jakob. He's been riding better and better throughout the spring, and now comes up with the big stage win on the Queen stage, number 4. Very difficult stage win. Primoz Roglic continuing to impress, holding on to the leader's jersey throughout the stage, which he would do throughout the race, and I'll get to that in a moment. The next stage 1, the final stage 5, Pascal Ackermann, his first win of 2018. So 3 riders scored their first win of the year. Ackermann teammates with Peter Sagan, and he was one of the first to congratulate him. Primoz Roglic continuing to be impressive in his career, 2nd in the World Time Trialing Championships. Big stage win in the Tour de France last summer. He's already won Pays Basque this year, which is an incredibly difficult stage race, similar to Tour of Romandie. Romandie may be more mountainous and maybe more difficult time trials, but Roglic winning the both and saying, I hope to win a Grand Tour in my career. I don't see that happening, quite honestly. My humble opinion. Go to the comments section, let me know. Roglic, a Grand Tour or not, I don't see him beating the current generation of riders, who he is a similar age to, started his racing career a bit late. That's a disadvantage for him to win a Grand Tour. I don't see him beating Froome, unless Froome is disqualified for a while, obviously. But then you've got Nairo, Tom Dumoulin, Vincenzo Nibali, Fabio Aru, Richie Porte, a lot of other riders, I think more capable of winning Grand Tours in the absence of Chris Froome than Primoz Roglic. And then, of course, the next generation of superstars that are coming up, Miguel Angel Lopez, Egan Bernal, Sam Oomen, the Yates brothers. I think that Primoz Roglic will really have to have a spectacular 3 weeks of racing to beat that list of names that I've just mentioned. And if I was advising him, I'd say stick to the 1 week stage races. Try for Tirreno or maybe Paris-Nice, some of the bigger profile week-long stage races, Tour de Suisse, Dauphiné, and go for stage wins in the time trials in the mountains of the Grand Tours. We'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. Will Primoz Roglic win a Grand Tour in his career? In the comment section. Keeping it nice and clean. Richie Porte, 3rd in the overall standings. Egan Bernal moved up to 2nd in the overall. Richie Porte saying that he's on track for the Tour de France. I think that would be, in all honesty, an overestimation. Dropped out of Tirreno the day before, 2 days before, because he was not well enough to compete. He has just one more stage race to get ready for the Tour de France. Tour de Suisse, I believe, was what he's going to use to prepare the Tour. That is still some weeks away, and of course the Tour de France a couple of months away. And I think that Richie, and also a lot of turmoil whether or not BMC is going to continue. More on that in a moment. I think, in my personal opinion, Richie is a little bit behind where he needs to be at this point in the season to be competitive in the Tour de France. What do you guys think? Let me know. Okay, let's go to the bad. Mentioned previously Thomas de Gendt winning the stage. What happened to the sprint teams? It was Bahrain and Sunweb, the teams of Sonny Colbrelli and Michael Matthews, doing the chase of the breakaway containing Thomas de Gendt, and fell far short of catching him before the finish. And Thomas de Gendt had plenty of time to celebrate. Pretty good win, but I'm a little disappointed in the way the chase was conducted from the peloton. Love to see Thomas de Gendt win, don't get me wrong. But if I'm coaching either one of those teams, I would have had a long sit down with the riders and say, listen, next time our sprinter has a chance to win, you have to catch the breakaway. Romandie is a hard race. If your sprinter's not 100%, it's tough to stay motivated enough to chase if you're one of the teammates of the sprinters. Michael Matthews pulling his guys off the front, struggling in the hills, which is a little bit surprising. But even if you're in contact at any point in the stage, you have to get your men on the front and do the chasing. Same with Bahrain Merida, the team of Sonny Colbrelli. And Colbrelli did not come up with a win, and Bahrain very little in the way of results, big results anyways, at Tour of Romandie because of that. Colbrelli did win the sprint when the field got to the line, so presumably his teammates chase, he wins a stage, and it's successful. That did not happen, but take nothing away from Thomas de Gendt, pretty brilliant breakaway performer. Also, to the bad Geraint Thomas in the time trial. I mean, he just blew to the moon, lost, I think it was close to 3 minutes to his teammates, to his teammate, Egan Bernal, and all of his other rivals for winning big races. That's a really inexplicable loss by Geraint Thomas, and rather disappointing. No explanation for it. He should be better than that. If I'm coaching Geraint Thomas, if I'm the team director, that would be another cause for a sit down and a serious talk, and you better get your TTing in gear when the biggest races of the season for your schedule are coming up. All right, from the bad to the ugly, also in the time trial, Fernando Gaviria. Outside the time limit, a very generous 9+ minutes that Gaviria was behind. A really remarkable unstitching of Fernando Gaviria. He is focused on the Tour de France, so still some time to get in shape. But I'm going to try to remember this during the Tour de France if he is unable to win some stages in the Tour, which he should be able to do when he's riding at his best. Tour de France best sprinters, winning there is hugely important for Gaviria. He is also behind the 8 ball, needs to get in gear and start training harder, eating better, sleeping, whatever it takes to get back to his best. Missing the time limit is not the way to do that, especially for Fernando. He's not that bad of a hill climber either. So, and that's it from the racing. Of course, Giro d'Italia is coming up, and the Tour of California. Can't wait to commentate on those and look for plenty of that, those news reports on the broom wagon to come. All right, everybody, up next, the Neutral Zone News. Okie dokie, in the Neutral Zone News, Adam Hansen about to start his 20th Grand Tours in a row. An outright record. No one's ever done that before. And I'm pretty sure he's already set the record at 18 or 19. So hats off to Adam Hansen in Israel, starting his 20th Grand Tour in a row at the Giro. And a race preview for that coming up in the next couple of days, I hope. Because it starts on Friday on BobkeTV. Also, BMC, their sponsorship is in a little bit of turmoil. Richie Porte saying it's crunch time. He would, presumably by saying that, would like to be signed for the foreseeable future, a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And this is a problem. This is a catch-22 for the teams. They need the signature of the star riders to have something to present to the potential sponsors. These are the riders you're going to be sponsoring if you sign with us, the management team, the people that run all the race teams. And so it's tough also to ask the star riders of teams that are in a transitional period when they're changing sponsors to hang tight, to wait until they have the ink dried on the contract and get guarantees that the team will continue. So it's very tricky. I can see from the team, they want the star riders to be able to sell themselves to sponsors, and for the riders, they have to look out for their best interests. So a very, very tricky balancing act. Rigoberto Urán, by the way, was in a similar situation last summer when the Cannondale team was looking for a new sponsor, and Rigo had just gotten second in the Tour de France. So he had a tremendous amount of clout to change teams to just about anywhere he wanted to go. But very magnanimously, I might add, he said he would wait until Jonathan Vaughters and the Cannondale team found a new sponsor or announced that they were going to discontinue the team. So that'll be very interesting to follow what happens to the Team BMC. And it's absolutely critical to understand the health of the business model of professional cycling and how viable cycling is from a sponsor standpoint. Is the sponsorship of a cycling team a good vehicle to promote your brand? That is a critical consideration and discussion moving forward for the foreseeable future of what happens to BMC and if that team can carry on. And you think about all the stars on that squad: Rowan Dennis, Greg Van Avermaet, Richie Porte, of course. So that's going to be very interesting to follow in the coming weeks and months. And I'm also very, very sad to report the passing of Jacqueline Crowell. She's been fighting cancer for a couple of years and has succumbed. And my deepest sympathies for her family, for her multitude of friends and teammates. And I'm very sad to hear of Jacqueline Crowell's passing. All right, everybody, up next, the Musette Musings. Okay, in the Musette Musing, it's Karsten Kroon, the Dutchman, coming forward after a very long career that started way back in 1998 and all the way through 2014, and then some. Karsten Kroon adding his name to the list of confessed dopers during his career. It's a little interesting how this confession became public, came to light. He had been for at least a year, for 12 months or so, in discussions with a reporter there at Algemeen Dagblad about his doping during his professional career. Karsten has gone on to say during this interview when he decided that what he would like to do is withhold his confession and not have it published based on circumstances that had changed since he retired. He's promised to provide, and I'm going to quote here, "I will provide full details at the end of the season." And I'm not sure why you need to wait a few months. One thing of note, the 10-year statute of limitations has not expired. So he could be facing a potential ban, even though he's retired. It doesn't hold a lot of, I mean, it's not, if you're retiring, if you get banned from racing after you retire, what do you lose exactly? But it does beg some important questions for us to ask. For me, number one, how come you were never caught? And if you could please explain how, and he had a very successful career, second in Amstel Gold Race, stage winner in the Tour de France. How is it you were never caught? And if you would provide us with those details to the UCI, and they could make those public, we can understand how better to move the anti-doping ways and means, statutes, and regulations forward, so it's much more difficult to cheat in the future. And also, I think it's important, if you're going to make a confession like this, you need to tell on which teams, and the teams he raced for, by the way, Rabobank, CSC, BMC, Tinkoff, the people involved, the personnel from those teams involved, especially if they're still involved in professional cycling, where the medicine came from, how it was financed, all of those gory details need to be public knowledge so we can move the anti-doping efforts forward. And if you're not willing to do that, then why make a very lukewarm confession the way Carson Froome has done so far. Time will tell. He said he's going to provide full details after the season's over. Another question, how about now? Another rider, and this is a little bit more disingenuous perhaps, is Louis Westra, also from the Netherlands, coming forward. And let me just, Louis has written a book about his his abuse in order to cheat with the legitimate, otherwise, therapeutic use exemption clause in professional cycling. His TUEs included cortisone, which he says he used as a performance-enhancing drug, not for any other reason, which begs a number of questions I'll get to in a minute. But first of all, Louis, you cheat the clean riders. And second, you want to benefit from that by writing a book and profiting even more. So make your money racing as a successful racer in spite of cheating, and then to add insult to injury, come back and write a book about it that presumably you get paid a good amount of money, or at least amount of money that makes it worth it to put in the effort. This begs so many questions. And the fear has been for a long time that the TUE program has been used and abused as a performance-enhancing substance, not to do what they said. And Louis says, it's very interesting, he says, the doctor would fill out the request, I have a bad knee, I need some cortisone, and the UCI had no trouble approving all of his requests for the TUEs that he used throughout his career as a means of cheating. His knees were not sore. His knees were not inflamed. He didn't have arthritis. He didn't have anything that would actually warrant the use of one of the TUEs, and just carried on with his career. He's also, one thing that disturbs me, has absolutely no remorse about abusing the TUE program. And that is really surprising to me, because the people that need it legitimately, now it's going to be much more difficult. Another thing it brings up is Bradley Wiggins' use of TUEs. Same product, same cortisone. Wiggins has said that it was a legitimate TUE, but it was to I've already gone on ad nauseum about my feelings of Bradley Wiggins. How is he going to prove that it was not for performance enhancing, especially the timing right before a number of grand tours, including the 2012 Tour de France that he won? But my main question of Louis, because this is recent, he's recently retired. Who were the doctors that, number one, made the request from your teams? And if they're still working in cycling, they need to be banned immediately. And who was the doctor or the doctors or the committee at the UCI that didn't do the due diligence to ask themselves, is this a legitimate TUE or is this a PED, a performance-enhancing drug? So a lot of questions that this brings up. But my main takeaway, do not buy Louis Westra's book. Nobody buy it, and then it'll be a more clear message to people that cheat the clean athletes. They can't benefit from that, and they can't benefit again by writing books, by doing exposés, and whatever else they're involved in professionally in cycling. And also, maybe this is the most important thing. We ask ourselves, what are the wages of false idolatry, of worshiping these athletes that it turns out are cheating with drugs, that it's not an authentic spectacle that we're witnessing? That's my two main questions and one request. And also, Chris Froome. Would it be a broom wagon without Chris Froome's current situation about his salbutamol, never-ending purgatory of what's going to happen to Froome? he has been asked, obviously, before the Giro d'Italia, a million questions about everything, and he's trying to be he's trying to guide the conversation towards the racing itself, rather than the elephant in the room, which is he going to be banned in the middle of the Giro, and what that means to the race? He said he is working with his team diligently to address the wider issues of this whole case. What wider issues? What wider issues could we be talking about? I think it's a pretty narrow issue. Yet twice the salbutamol allowed, and rather than not race while it's being adjudicated, he has decided to continue racing. And I have no doubt he's the best rider in the Giro and will win. And then when they decide that the salbutamol case goes against him, which I'm not sure how it can't, please explain that in the comments section. And he loses his Giro title and they give it to second place. That sets us a long ways back in the anti-doping movement, and is reminiscent of the 2011 Giro, when Alberto Contador, who was not positive, by the way, during that Giro, lost his title to Michele Scarponi, who finished second in that Giro because of a previous case that from the Tour de France, where he was positive and disqualified from that also. So please elucidate us on the wider issues involved. And I'm going to leave you with this, the tweet of the week. I'd like to thank everybody for commenting. I'd like to thank my subscribers. This channel will vanish if I don't get to a specific number that I have already decided before the end of the summer, which I'm going to announce before the Tour de France, I promise. Thumbs up, also greatly appreciated. Got some new merchandise. I'm going to show everybody some of the new t-shirts we have for sale, but click on that, click on subscribe, and I'm going to leave you with this from Omar Freila. Very clever, very hilarious. Yee-haw!